Hello, I am DattatreyaTapkeer. Today's title seems to be Spiritually Nervous and in bracket System. Now, what this is all about? You might think that, if you leave aside the bracket with system, you would feel as if spiritually nervous. Well, you will feeling that somebody can be spiritually nervous. Are we spiritually nervous? Is it possible to be spiritually nervous? We are nervous. There's nervous breakdown and we say, I'm feeling very nervous. And then what kind of nervousness, spiritual nervousness can it be? Perhaps, is that something which I want to talk? So, no, I don't want to talk about that because there is nothing like spiritual nervousness. Though in one of the videos I have talked about spiritual stress. Well, that can be equated with so-called nervousness. But today I want to talk about spiritually nervous, and as a fun I have put that word system in bracket. I want to complete it together. I want to read it together, spiritually nervous system. Now let's come to nervous system. Well, all of we know from our general science knowledge, from which the science or anatomy or physiology of our human body, which we have learned from schools and colleges. It's a general knowledge thing that we know we do have many systems in our body. So skeletal system will be there, then the respiratory system is there, digestive system is there, circulatory system is there. Similarly, this nervous system is also there. We also know it's a very, very important system which deals with our process of knowledge. It deals with, it is composed of our most important organ, that is brain itself. And then there is this spinal cord, which runs through, from brain, the hind part of the brain, it runs through the vertebral column till the our lower part of the body, our waistline. So this spinal cord, then something like medulla oblongata, and there are many more things. And then these hundreds and thousands of smaller nerves, which are running throughout the body. So this is our nervous system. But in this nervous system, we haven't talked anything about spiritualism. Nobody talks us about, nobody tells us about, nobody teaches that. That's not the point at all. But nowadays, there seems to be quite a change in this attitude. And very sincere students of neurology, of nervous system, are very sincerely, very genuinely trying to find out, is there something correlated with the nervous system and the spirituality. Now, at one hand, this spirituality happens to be a very traditional science or art or whatever it is, way of life and spiritual practices as people follow. So spirituality turns into the religion, spirituality turns into something that is ancient, spirituality turns into something that is beyond body, where body is not concerned at all. It is something beyond mind as well. So mind, intelligence, and beyond that something spiritual, some spirit, some soul. And then there are the talks of consciousness as a conscious mind and subconscious mind, and people feeling, unconscious, and then something like, superconscious. All these things are discussed in psychology and so-called parapsychology as well. And now there comes this particular discussion about nervous system. Now it's very strange to know that. Well, we know, let's begin like this. We are not only body, that's there anyway. Any logically thinking person will approve that I am a body and I am something else than that. It may be function of a body to think that I am a body, or it may be the function of body itself that to feel that, to know that I am. So this very existence, this very consciousness, this very awareness about I am happens to be there. It's there. Now that my feeling of being aware, my feeling of being aware of myself, that I am there, my existence, it has to have some relation to the body. Anyway, when I know I'm a body, I also know I'm a mind. I also know there are thoughts, there are emotions in my body, there are feelings in my body. So it is something like, what modern generation would very easily understand. It is something like a pair of hardware and a software. So hardware, which is very concrete, which is very material, which is very thing in itself, it's like object, and which contains in it something like software, which is an abstract, energetic, which is, which is with the help of body, with the help of that object, with the help of that matter, something beyond matter sticks to it. It remains with it. And that's why I say that whenever you talk about hardware, and the software. So software is inside the hardware. With the help of hardware, the software is existing itself. So similarly, my existence as a human being also might be something like hardware and software. And the hardware of my body is there outside, from outside what I see as a body, as we call as a made up of 5 elements or many more elements like that. These are all chemical elements. So the physics and chemistry of my body is a very material thing. But at the same time, I am aware of my own feelings, my emotions, and my existence, that I am there. I am aware of my joy, of pleasure, of sorrow, my emotions. Then the word from psychology comes, that is intelligence. I do have an intelligence. Now what is this intelligence about? All these are functionary things. These are functions. But these functions are attached to something that is substantial, something that is objective, something that is material, something that is concrete. So now this concreteness, as I do find exactly that I do have hands with which I work, I do have my eyes with which I see, I do have nose with which I, smell. So these are the sense organs that I have got, these 5 sense organs. And at the same time, I also know that these 5 sense organs, the external 5 sense organs, they receive the knowledge from the external world and they report it to something that is inside me. And from there I come to know, well, this is what I am seeing, this is what I am listening, this is what I am smelling. Now, this kind of coordination, we naturally know right from our school days that all this coordination is done by the great brain. So the brain that is there inside my head, this brain, that stuff, that is made up of nerve, that nervous matter, this brain is the base, this brain is the foundation of all my feelings and my thoughts and my emotions and my thinking and my intelligence and my memory as well. Everything I do remember because of this brain only. So I come to know about the external world. All these gateways of knowledge from the 5 sense organs, they are recorded into, they come together into my brain. So brain is that authority, that organ, that physical organ, that substantial, that objective organ, or the object itself that's there inside my head. That is responsible, that the functions of the brains are responsible for this kind of software which I was referring about, this software of my emotions, feelings, intelligence, everything, even my language. When I speak, the sound comes out, but who thinks about what to speak about? How do I choose my words? So entire this very coming up of language and my creativity, and how do I think about my ideas? Something comes up in my mind. So all these things now psychologists are trying their best to study this and to study its physical place, its physical, what I can call, counterparts inside the body, that is inside the brain. And we know that the other organs, these other subsidiary organs like medulla oblongata and all the nerves throughout the body, and the spinal cord especially, and the various plexus that are there on the spinal cord throughout, all these together, they are responsible. They are doing this wonderful job of knowing, of sensing, of perceiving, this perception, this meaningful sensation, meaningful perception, and then everything that is the storage of knowledge, storage in the memory, and then feeling, and then joy, and then pleasure, and then being calm and quiet, and then being disturbed and all that, and then my so-called concentration, and then going beyond the mind, and then slowly I come to know that these are the things which are also discussed in spirituality. So somewhere in between, you see, as I always say, that at one hand there is physics, chemistry, biology of the body. At the other hand there is psychology, parapsychology, and spiritualism in the body. And these two are connected. These spiritual experiences must have, that's what scientists say nowadays, they say that must have some base in the matter, that is matter of the body, that is in the nerves of the body, that is in the brain of the body. If brain is the organ of my consciousness, if brain is the organ of my thinking, of my emotions, of my feelings, that in that brain itself there has to have something which is related to the thing called spirituality. So when I am spiritual, when I talk about transcendental experiences, when I talk about super consciousness, when I talk about going beyond my existence, all these things have to have some kind of correspondence in between. Even in case of sleep also, when I am awake and when I am asleep, when I am dreaming. Now these different states of consciousness, my being aware, my being completely aware in consciously, then going into the dreams, then half sleep, half awareness, half sleep, half awake, then dream, then deep sleep, the sleep without dreams. and then after again when I am awakened, I remember that I had slept very well, like that. And in this way they say, even in Indian philosophy, as these four different states are described as Jagruti, Swapna, Sushupti and Turiya. So these different states of consciousness where we talk about conscious, subconscious and superconscious states of mind. So at one end, when there is an abstraction of all these ideas, at the other end, very sincerely, very genuinely, psychologists and neurologists especially, they are trying to find out the connections between these two. And personally, I think that's a welcome step. That's very nice. Some of my friends following traditional spiritualism might feel awkward about it. What is this about? Why they are dissecting out? Why they are analyzing it so thoroughly? And why are looking it as at spirituality as a so crude physical material science as such? I don't think so. I think they are together. Matter and mind comes together. Energy and this object comes together. So spirituality, the spirit, the beyond something that is body, that stays with the help of body itself. So all that abstraction and the greater ideas of cosmic intelligence, everything, it remains in my body itself. It remains in my head itself. It remains in my brain itself. So that's a nice thing to study about it. Just as we can study linguistically, we can study about the origin of language. How does language, from a very deeper sense of our mind, it comes out with the emotions, feelings, memories, and then it takes the form of concrete words, and then words are spoken or written. So everything that happens inside me is expressed outside. So that's why this study is very, very important. Especially when the intelligence was studied, we know that intelligence has the centers in the brain. Everything has a center in the brain. My vision has a center inside the brain. My auditory sensations have a center in the brain. My smelling center. Everything that has that does come through these sense organs has got their own centers in the brain. So brain has its own centers of thinking. Brain has all these wonderful activities are there. Of course, I'm not supposed to, and I don't deserve it also to talk about all these neurological and scientific things. But whatever I have read through it, whatever I have studied through it, this is just my a personal reaction to it. Then I'm very happy for such kind of study. Salute to those. Thanks to those great people, those who are studying about it. For example, in case of intelligence, when the idea after the logical intelligence, when the idea of emotional intelligence came, so Sir Daniel Goleman, when he was talking about his emotionality in the brain, he has talked a lot of things about this. What happens emotionally when emotions are aroused in our mind, and what happens? What are the centers in the brain? What happens neurologically? Now, it's not only neurology, then it's something like electrical and something like magnetic. Wonderful things are talked about, and they're quite real. There's nothing is imaginary. Nothing is just a fake or pseudoscience. It's an exact, experimental, objective, verifiable science tells us that there is something electrical in the brain, there is something magnetic in the brain, there are some electrical currents and then impulses and nerve impulses and whatnot. So many things are talked about. They talk about different parts of the brain and functions of their different brains. And then they talk about serial neural connections. They also talk about neural network organization. There is something like unifying neural oscillations. There is also temporal lobe epilepsy. Wonderful things are talked about that. So it is something, the matter itself, the very biological matter called the nerves. It might have its own chemistry and its own physics, but biologically it's a matter that is nerves. These nerves, tissues, neuron, etc. And these nerve tissues come together. So they are so wonderful, so fantastic tissues. And these neural tissues, they do have some electrical impulses, electrical currents and some magnetic currents in them. That's what it said. So of course, we common men, or those we don't have that much detailed knowledge about science. But whatever comes to us, then we come to know that yes, there is some relation in it. For example, I was talking about Daniel Goleman, who talked us about a small part called amygdala, something in the brain that is there, amygdala. This amygdala is quite responsible for, interpreting the emotions. It interprets all the emotions and feelings, and then the entire, system model of emotional intelligence is given by Mr. Daniel Goleman very nicely, superbly. Similarly, social intelligence, and still the next one, which I am very much fond of, that is spiritual intelligence. So just like logical intelligence and social intelligence and many other types of intelligences given by Mr. Howard Gardner, there comes to be spiritual intelligence, on which many persons have already worked, like Diana Azor is there, then Cindy Wigglesworth is there, then Michael Persinger is there, then Austrian neurologist Mr. Wolf Singer is there, or Harvard University neurologist is Terence Deacon. All these gentlemen have tried their best to provide a spiritual, experimental basis to this kind of study. And then they are using different techniques also. Those techniques are also quite different and new. We have no idea about them, what's the detail about it. But there are certain techniques. They say there is positron emission topography, or there is magnetoencephalogram, or there is ion channel activities and brain oscillations and whatnot, and different hertz, the cycles, cycles per second, they are measured, that is in hertz. And they are also classified as alpha, beta, gamma, delta, etc. And the states of brain are classified according to that in which state the brain is there, like beta waves and then gamma waves and then delta waves and then alpha waves, etc. And accordingly all these functions are measured now. So it is nowadays becoming a measurable science which can verify, which can try its best. We know that it's quite difficult. It's very, very difficult task to correlate it with this kind of physical, chemical, psychological study. It's combined with that's very difficult. But still, very sincere efforts are being done about it. And then we come to know that our spirituality, our attitude, our thinking spirit, our going beyond, or what you call as superconscious states or samadhi states and all that, that has to have some corresponding, some counterpart, some counter existence with the brain activities. That has to be there. So the actually function is this now. What this study is doing now, it is trying to analyze, it is trying to tell us scientifically what might be happening when these different states of spiritual progress happen in a person's mind. What happens exactly in the brain when you are disturbed, you are not concentrating, you are under anxiety, and then what differences are found in the brain chemicals or electrical currents when you become silent, you concentrate very well, you become deeply, totally you go into the trance, you have ecstasy, you have tremendous joy, and your heart is filled with emotions, your heart is filled with love. Something special must be happening inside the brain. And I know in a couple of years coming now, all these things will be very much clear to us. So this does not mean that spirituality is becoming mechanical. Never. I do think that this mechanical study, this physical study, chemical study, electrical study, magnetic study, whatever this is, this kind of analysis, this kind of, what you call as a kind of a dissection it is. That is needed. That is a scientific attitude. One should not believe just whatever is told you and just believe the words and go on and just, create a very imaginary cloud of all that so-called spirituality. I do believe that, well, let young generation take interest in this. Let the young generation come across this kind of very, very factual, scientific, logical, rational study of bodily functions, physiological functions, neurological functions together with the wonders of the inner world. Let the outer world and the inner world come together, join hand in hand, and let us understand our spirituality in still better terms. That will help us to. That will help us to induce spirituality. That will help us to inculcate, just as we say that creativity is there in all of us. It's not only inborn thing. It is not only person is born with some special qualities. Everybody is creative, provided he or she gets enough training to develop that. Similarly, everybody has to be spiritual. We are spiritual. What else can we be? It's the search for our inner existence today. So, while doing that inner search, let this study, let this our inner journey be very easily, very nicely, very gracefully, very gloriously be supported by this kind of study about nervous system. And then we can say that our nervous, this spiritually nervous, we can be spiritually nervous, but not spiritually nervous in that sense. We can really say that this spirituality which comes to us, it comes to us from body, it comes to us from beyond the body, and is going beyond the body. Body itself is the, what you call, a kind of instrument for it. So, we have to go beyond body through body itself. We have to understand body perfectly, and then we can go beyond body. We have to understand the consciousness with the reference to body, and then we have to go beyond this and try to find out our own inner nature. So that is, I think, in the coming years, it will be very easily done. And once again, I congratulate all those scientists who are studying so well in this regard. And I also request all my dear friends who who love traditional spiritualism, traditional religion and traditional practices, never to disturbed about, never to feel it awkward like these kinds of studies. Let us welcome all such kinds of studies which will ultimately enrich our spirituality. Well, thank you, friends.